Apartment 7A is the new prequel to Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby. It's about 50 years since the last one came out, but you know what? It's never too late for Hollywood. Actually, this film isn't even getting a theatrical release. It's heading straight to Paramount Plus, which is where I watched it. It follows Terry, a character from the first movie, played here by Julia Garner. She's an aspiring Broadway dancer who suffers a foot injury, and as she's on the road to recovery and gaining her confidence back, a very familiar old couple offers to take her in for the meantime. And guess where she's staying? It's Apartment 7A. Of all of the horror franchises out there that could use a reboot, franchises that still have stories left to be told, I think Rosemary's Baby is like smack dab at the bottom of the list. I just watched the original for the first time a couple of weeks ago by Roman Polanski. Say what you want about him as a person, it was really tough for me to separate the art from the artist in this case, but this is the type of movie that only Polanski could do so well. The fact that that movie is so tense and unsettling, despite the fact that it has no jump scares, it has no gore, no horrific imagery of any kind, really. It's just pure psychological distress at its most methodical. Apartment 7A, on the other hand, does have jump scares. It has horrific imagery and a design choice for the devil himself that was unique, but also kind of strange looking in a not so scary way. It also has a lot of cheesy tropes that bothered me. Terry makes it into the chorus for this Broadway show, and she's bullied by other grown women over her injury? Come on, man, that's just not realistic, at least the way it's portrayed here. To give due credit, I think the film actually starts out pretty strong. I think the 60s vibe is captured quite well, the direction is solid, and I like that our protagonist has different ambitions. She's not just another Rosemary. Being that she's a dancer, we get quite a few dance sequences, and some of the choreograph is actually very intricate and clearly took a lot of practice, so kudos to them for putting in the work. I also really appreciate some of the fever dream sequences, many of which actually reminded me of Guadagnino's version of Suspiria. But as soon as Terry gets pregnant, it hits the tropes pretty hard, and it kind of made me lose respect for the film because it showed the blatant lack of understanding for why the original works so well. I would still classify the original Rosemary's Baby as a horror film, but once again, it was so subtle with everything it did. It created this dread, this impending sense of doom. Just by the sole fact that Rosemary is pregnant, all of these weird things are happening around her, nobody seems to take her concerns seriously, so she feels so isolated and alone. And this movie at times tries to recapture that sense, but it never succeeds because, for one thing, the pregnancy part of the storyline doesn't even come into play until like the second half, and it feels much more rushed this time around. Again, I appreciated it when it was taking a different approach to the main character, but that also means it lacks the same degree of suspense regarding the build-up towards this finale that we know is coming. Gotta say too, as far as the castavettes here, they're bringing the same energy as the original, but I think we see too much of them, particularly Minnie. I appreciate the attempt from the actress who plays her this time around, but she almost came off as too goofy here. In the first one, she was so nosy and prying that it came off as creepy, and here it made me chuckle a couple of times when I think I was supposed to be kind of freaked out by her overbearing nature. It really did start off on a promising note, but it just devolved into a total retread. And it's like, why make a prequel if you're just going to package it as a remake, if it's going to feel like a retelling of the same exact story with very few differences aside from some things in the first act? And the ending really did not work for me. I mean, if you've watched Rosemary's Baby, you know how it ends for Terry, but what you don't know is the final moments that lead to that ending for her character. And the way it's portrayed here, it includes a dance scene that instantly dissipated any of the suspense in the scene. I just did not buy it. Julia Garner is innocent though. I think she's fantastic in this film and easily elevates it above what could have been even worse of a retread. It's so interesting to compare and contrast this to The First Omen, which is basically telling the same story about a cult of people that are trying to bring the Antichrist into the world through a human vessel. But that film, unlike this one, changed more. It was better executed in terms of the scares. Most of the scares here did not get me whatsoever. They were predictable, heavily telegraphed, and nothing I was seeing or hearing was actually creeping me out at all. This is neither here nor there, but it's funny to me that we've had like 4 films come out this year in which some sort of horrific childbirth sequence happens. I mean, you've got Alien Romulus with that thing in the third act, not to spoil the film. We had Immaculate and The First Omen, and now this. So many films that are incorporating pregnancy and the horrific nature of childbirth into their stories. And of those 4, I think this is definitely the weakest. If it weren't for the piss poor jump scares, I would maybe give this 2.5 stars, but to be brutally honest, it's a 2-star film. For how well shot it is on what I'm guessing is a very small budget, I'm still excited to see what director Natalie Erica James does next because I think she shows a lot of potential. Obviously, the acting in this film by our protagonist. There are so many pieces here that could have fallen together into a decent prequel, but instead we got a run-of-the-mill retread, so bit disappointing. As always, thanks for clicking on this video. If you want to see more content like this, hit that like button and subscribe before you head out. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.